Hello! Welcome to yet again another Dandy's Wood video. If you play this game, you may have noticed that Blushcrunch seems to be releasing these smaller updates basically weekly. But frankly, I don't think this is what Dandy's Wood needs right now. The small updates, while being content for the game, don't actually address the core issues the game has had for well over a year now. Yes, I do think that small updates can still fix these problems. Literally, these updates are all a part of Dandy's Wood Recode, which Quill said herself is meant to open more doors for unique content to come into the game. Before I say the core problems and why the small updates are inherently useless, what are the small updates in question? I said it as one of the first things in this video. The small updates are the updates that have been happening around this month, May 2026. These updates, as of the upload of this video, are Sprout's Toon of the Week, the Duo Machines, and V-Mail. Sprout's Toon of the Week added a bunch of cosmetics for Sprout, as well as lightly polishing his Twisted variant to have unique pathfinding depending on certain conditions. It also gave Sprout a small nerf. Duo Machines added, well, the Duo Machines and their multiple variants. The update also came with a machine recode that changed the amount of machines depending on the amount of Twisteds alive. Lastly is V-Mail, which is just a way for the devs to make more money from the game disguised as a donation system. So, what do the updates do? Toon of the Week is meant to put Toons and Twisteds more in line with what is now possible due to the recode. For example, making Twisteds have more complex mechanics or even just more general mechanics. It may also rework, buff, or nerf Toons. This is yet to be fully proven though, as the only Toon of the Week showed that Toons may receive nerfs. The Duo Machines do the same thing, but for machines. We haven't seen it yet, but it's likely that machines will be able to have more complex mechanics or work differently. It also balanced the amount of machines by lowering the machine minimum. Also, obviously, it introduced machines so 2 Toons can extract 1 machine. V-Mail is just for monetization. I admit though, it is a pretty good way of handling it since players can give each other game passes in iCore. Now that we covered the small updates, I want to talk about the core issues with Dandy's Wood. That way, you can understand them so you're not assuming or confused when it gets to the point where I talk about how these small updates don't solve them.
Core problems.
When coming into this section, I will acknowledge that not all the core problems are here. This is mostly because I don't want the core issues to be the main takeaway from this video, especially since I am planning a whole video about the core issues alone, but also because they aren't what this video is about. Anyways, the core problems are stat design, poor progression, and slow gameplay. I will briefly go over each of the problems. The stat design is one of the biggest problems Dandy's Wood has. These stats make all of the Toons way too stat dependent, and that's just the general outlook of it. If you look at it individually, it's even worse. Movement speed shows how flawed a movement speed stat is. It makes distractors exist, allowing for the threat in the game to completely vanish without much effort. Let's look at lower movement speed. It makes surviving way more difficult because you have to lose Twisteds one by one, and you have the chance of regaining them nearly immediately if you don't position yourself in a likely risky place where you're more likely to get hit or cornered. Plus, if you don't have a lot of stamina, you sure as hell will lose it all. Poor progression means the difficulty of getting there and how earned it feels to players. The difficulty is purely grinding and RNG. This means that getting one character can take up to hours to earn. If a floor 20 solo runs earns you 800 iCore, which is an hour, that means everybody but 5 Toons will take longer than an hour to get, which even then, 5 times 30 minutes is still 2.5 hours. I also wouldn't say players feel rewarded. Since the Toons depend on their stats and a lot of the stats are a sack of garbage, none of the Toons feel necessary to play. Even if they are decent, they won't feel unique or anything, just being a copy of another Toon, but a worse version. Look at Brightney, who's just a worse V. This isn't even mentioning non-iCore research requirements like mastery completion. The slow gameplay really just comes down to the Toons and enemy design. I said that Toons suck because of their stats, and that's shown in game. As for Twisteds and machines, well, Twisteds suck because barely any of them have any unique mechanics or gameplay design. They're all chasers. Machines also have the same issue, so they're barely unique. The difficulty of gameplay is basically just numbers. Faster Twisteds, more machines. It isn't fun, and it gets repetitive fast. Whoops, this section is a little long, but that's because the core issues are plentiful, and I hope to go more in depth about them in their own videos soon. So let's talk about how these issues aren't getting solved by the small updates. Sorry, that was probably too direct.
Issues not solved and the cost.
So all these problems, what do these updates solve? Nothing. This section is going to be so short because only 2 of these updates may end up doing anything, and that's because internally they're mostly just recodes. Toon of the week is Toon and Twisted Polishing, likely allowing for a lot more unique mechanics within both of them. As for the Duo Machine update, this likely means machines are going to be more unique as well. So what are the consequences of going with the small updates that don't solve anything? Well, that's it. They don't solve anything. They can add these small game drops all they want, but the underlying core problems will remain underlying and core problems. This also gives the developers kind of a bad look. It looks like they don't care and they're going to take their time fixing whatever they want to fix, as if it's not the main complaint this game has had for nearly 2 years at this point. I mean, hell, B-Mail is just a purely monetization update. The devs just look like they're slacking, probably because the project manager, Quell, can't manage the project correctly. Let's take Die Death for example. They've been in a huge content drought, but at least there's something we're waiting for. We're waiting for the full release of the game that will rework everything from abilities, maps, civilian customization, and maybe even killers. What are we waiting for in Danny's world? You know, the Toon of the Week. The small event that lasts a week and doesn't even come out weekly, which, mind you, the rewards are purely cosmetics. It's literally the whole optimization thing all over again, treating optimizations like they're these big points to a whole update, when it should be something added to a normal content update, not be the content itself.
What the game needs.
Now, how do we fix this? The easy answer would be for the developers to focus on making updates that fix the core issues directly. For example, let's say an update is revolved around making the stat design for the game way better, removing some stats and replacing them or reworking stats. However, I understand this would basically cause a spiral of having to change literally everything else. I mean, Blushcrunch scripters should have some experience with this since they literally recoded the whole game, but let's just say they can't do that. We can implement this nicely into Toon of the Week. Polishing is more than just buffs or changing stars from one stat to another. It's making the toons more in line with the new stats. Albeit, I understand this won't work if the stat redesign is harsh, which I imagine it would be since, to me, that's the best way to fix it. I also think the Duo Machine idea is good, but it should have more. Add more machines than just Duo Machines now that the machine recode likely allows for much more crazier ideas. It'd be better to do so anyway. They could also change the way Twisted spawn in the future if they all get unique mechanics. That way it feels less like the community in numbers and more like difficulty in differing mechanics. Kind of like indoors.
Counter arguments.
Usually, I cover counter arguments within my previous sections, but this time I'll have one section covering most of the counter arguments I can think of. So let's see the first one. Weekly updates keep the game alive. While yes, any update raises the concurrent users for this game immensely, it going down equally as fast shows the problems with small updates as well. There's nothing keeping people playing this game besides updates that have very short-term effects on the analytics of the game. I would even argue regular updates do so as well. Squirm, for example. People stayed for at most a week because you had to struggle getting him, then getting his trinket, then they played him for a bit, realized he's just another whatever toon and left. This is because the gameplay is stale. The next counterpoint. The devs are trying and to be patient. Oh, I think I speak for everyone when I say we've been more than patient. The game's second year anniversary is literally next month, on June 14th. Since then, the only major change to the gameplay loop is a card being able to give a challenging floor and a reward for completing that floor. Besides that, gameplay additions have only been what? New machines and 6 unique twisteds out of 30 something? I wouldn't even argue the devs are bare minimum trying. They're doing way below what should be expected. I'm sorry to put my expectations so high for an indie team, but the genre that Danny's Wood is, roguelikes, is able to be shaped and shifted into being good because of how crappy the original Rogue is. Like, there's a lot more room for innovation. Listen, I'm a game developer too. I'm making my own Delver and Danny-like game on the same platform as Danny's Wood, Roblox. I make the scripts and the game design for the game, and frankly, it shouldn't be that hard if you think about the short-term and long-term effects of the game. This to me shows that Quell only cares about the short-term stuff that comes from her game, usually ignoring the long-term ones, like distracting and the band-aid fix that was the rarity chance changes. I also need to quickly cover their monetization, which is through the roof. I want to make a video going more in depth about the over-monetization Danny's Wood has, so I will only briefly cover that here. First, the Robux monetizations. This includes buying the in-game currencies, skin game passes, and gifting them through Vmail. For non-Robux versions, Blushcrunch got a deal with Culturefly to make merch for the game. This includes plushies, apparel, posters, acrylic stands, and probably a couple more things. I personally think that the developer team is making enough money, but not doing a good enough job on their end. Actually, no, scrap that. Not the developer team, but rather Quell. She's probably also one of the only game designers and isn't focusing on that aspect as much as literally everything else. Again, I want to go more in depth about this in my opinions, so I'll stop here for now. I will cover one more counter argument, and this is one that I actually agree with. The Roblox algorithm doesn't fully support gameplay updates that take long. This was actually a point my friend came up with, and I totally agree. The Roblox algorithm sucks ass, and would prefer if you pumped out updates, specifically events, relatively frequently. I cannot blame Blushcrunch, or even Quill, for this because it's not their fault and they don't have any say in the matter. I can actually relate to them here, if anything. YouTube's algorithm would prefer if you try to stick to your niche compared to branching out. It's why I made that poll on making a Die Death video, but I never ended up doing so. My most strategic method is to publish the Die Death video after a Danish Wood one, but since making videos takes time, I haven't been able to find the time to multitask. It's even worse that I'm making a Roblox game. It gives me less room to multitask. I don't have a transition to smoothly end the last counter argument, but if you have any rebuttals, feel free to share them in the comments. Hey, you reached the end of the video. If I'll be honest, I only thought of this video to make up for me not directly covering Toon of the Week, the Duo Machine update, or VMail. Sorry if this one was a lot more ranty. I think if the video was just what the title was, it wouldn't be longer than 3 minutes. Thanks for watching until the end. Treat this video kind of like a small taste of future videos, specifically the core problems in a video about Blushcrunch's monetization methods. If you agreed with anything I said here, or just want to watch this video grow, make sure to give out a like. Subscribe if you want more stuff like this, and hype the video if you're on mobile. It helps a lot. Also, please respond to the latest post I made. If it isn't the latest one, then the one on screen right now. Anyways, thank you.